an artificial intelligence war, a war over the development of artificial intelligence. He saw this breaking down into two camps. He termed those two camps Cosmists and Terrans. And so I want to get his definition of those two camps. Now we want to talk about how close he thinks that is to happening. And I want to talk to him about what I would call, Dr. Garris, your conflict over seeing this breaking out into possibly the extinction of the human species, yet nevertheless being drawn to continue the development of it anyway. I guess I would call it the Garris paradox, maybe. I want to talk to you about that because I think that's something that at every level, scientists and engineers, especially those working with the military-industrial complex, need to be thinking through these issues, the ethical considerations about what they're doing, the consequences of what they're doing. So I want to get to that, but before we do, break down for us your idea of these two competing camps, the Cosmists and the Terrans.
Okay. If you ask me, what was the dominant global political question of the 19th century, I'd say probably it was Marx's question. Who should own capital? And that question just divided society bitterly into the communists and the capitalists. And we almost had a war in a nuclear war in 1962 over that relatively trivial issue. But the equivalent dominant global political question for the 21st century, I see again in four words, and that would be, should humanity build artellects? Now, an artelect is an artificial intellect. In other words, a godlike, massively intelligent machine with mental capacities, say, trillions of times above the human level. So the people I label in favor of building those godlike machines, and it'd be a kind of religion for them almost. I mean, a scientifically based religion, but a religion in a certain sense, because they would be building gods, and that's a motivator. And on the other hand, the people who are opposed to building these artelects, I call them Terrans. That's not terror as in terrorist, but terra, the earth, because that's their perspective. They want, their number one priority is that human beings should remain the dominant species and most intelligent. Whereas the cosmists, that's based on the word cosmos, the universe, that's their picture, because they see that if humanity does decide to build these godlike machines, these artelects, then probably very quickly they would decide, what are we doing on this little heat planet called the Earth when there's a whole universe, there's a whole cosmos out there to explore, and that cosmos may contain beings far, far superior to what they are, these artelects, because they've been around for billions of years longer than we have. Our sun, our star, is only, a third of the age of the universe? So
hang on just one second, Dr. DeGaris, because we're showing some of the slides that you had sent us about your presentation. And I'm looking at the one here where it has the stars, and it says Cosmos, and it has cyborgs, which is Ray Kurzweil's understanding of this. And we see part man, part machine. And then the one in the middle, it says Terran, and it shows a Terminator robot. Now, I would look at that as thinking that was kind of more on the Cosmos standpoint, but why would you choose the Terran, for the Terran picture, why would you choose the Terminator robot?
Because the number one concern of the Terrans is that if the Cosmists go ahead and actually build these artelects, and then the artelects become massively intelligent and so superior to human beings that they look on us as an inferior pest, who's to say?
So that's the vision of each of these groups. The vision of the Cosmists is to reach out to the stars.
It's either their greatest vision, their greatest wonder, a sense of awe, or their greatest fear.
Let me interject in here just momentarily. Elon Musk is very concerned about a dystopian outcome from self-aware artificial intelligence. I think it's interesting that he's also developing SpaceX. You think he is trying to come up with a plan B, so he's got an escape port to get out of here in case this all goes down pretty bad?
Well, I had a scenario in my book that a bunch of cosmist researchers, they get in a rocket and try to escape from the Earth to get away from the Terrans.
Yes.
But the Terrans, I would argue, would be so fearful that if this escaping rocket did succeed in building Artilex, who's to say that the Artilex might decide, oh, we want to get back to the Earth. It's so full of raw materials.
That's true. And we've seen we've seen a lot of aspects of your book, The Artilect War. We've seen that mirrored in movies when you're talking about Cosmos trying to escape into a near-Earth orbit or whatever to hide out. It reminds me of what we saw in Elysium. And, of course, with Transcendence, they borrowed quite liberally from your scenario, didn't they?
Yeah, there's an amusing little story behind Transcendence. Do you want to hear it?
Sure, yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Well, a couple of years back, I got hired by Warner Brothers to be the tech advisor to a movie that was to be called Twilight Zone. It was to be a remake of a popular 50s science fiction series, Twilight Zone. And so I was trying to advise them strongly, saying, look, make the background story as realistic as possible, set maybe, 10, 20 years in the future, where AI is really becoming not a piece of science fiction anymore, but it's getting real, real AI. And to the point where people are getting alarmed, people are taking sides, vigilante groups are being set up. Now, in the movie Transcendence, that group was called Rift. So in the movie, what was called Rift is the equivalent of what I call Terrans, so the same thing. Mm-hmm. So I didn't hear anything for a while, so I assumed the movie just died. That often happens in Hollywood. And then suddenly up come flyers and trailers for this movie Transcendence, and I look at it and say, hey, that's my story. so what do you think happened? Because Transcendence is Warner Brothers, right? It's a Warner Brothers movie. So what I'm deeply suspicious happened was
it wouldn't be the first time.
The ideas were transferred from one, my movie to the other movie, and then that way they didn't have to pay me the 5-figure bonus for getting the movie filmed.
That's true.
I'm feeling rather pissed.
That wouldn't be the first time something like that happened. Now, you're looking at essentially a conflict, people being concerned because they see rapidly advancing artificial intelligence. Perhaps they see control of their life slipping away, increasingly power being concentrated. Maybe there's massive unemployment that people are concerned about because of the use of lower-level artificial intelligence. So people start to push back against it, especially those who are concerned that it may become the kind of threat that we saw in the Terminator movie. We're talking about movies, where Skynet becomes self-aware, and then they start acting like we saw Sarah Connors act in Terminator 2, where she starts going after, let's say, key scientists. We actually had this already happen in real life, didn't we, with the Unabomber, with Ted Kaczynski going out. If you look at his manifesto, that's exactly what he was concerned about. He was targeting what he thought were key scientists, doing it in a very violent way, trying to blow them up with letter bombs and that sort of thing. But that's essentially what you see happening, even if we don't get to the level where we have super intelligent artificial intelligences that become self-aware, the Artilects as you refer to them. Even if that doesn't happen prior to that, it would be the idea of it, or the implementation of the early stages of it, would set different camps in humanity against each other into a violent war. Yeah,
indeed. It depends on whether the level of development of artificial intelligence is quick or slow. The guys in the specialists in this area, they talk about slow takeoff and fast takeoff. I don't know if you're familiar with those terms. So if there's a fast takeoff, meaning that these machines rapidly become ultra intelligent, then there may not be enough time for human politics to unfold. So they're just there. It's just fait accompli. And so then humanity's fate would lie in the hands of these Artilects. But I think it's more realistic to say probably there's going to be a slow takeoff, because trying to figure out how the human brain works is a very, very difficult problem. So probably the most realistic scenario is I see that humanity will have enough time to react politically as these machines get smarter and smarter. And the time frame, you mentioned a bit about the time frame, I see the home robot industry becoming one of the biggest and richest in the world, say by the end of the 20s, so say a decade and a half from now. And so as they become, these machines become more and more intelligent and more useful, then people will buy them, because if these machines truly can walk the dog and babysit the kids and tell you stories and entertain you and sex you and educate you and all these things, people will pay big money, maybe even more than for a car, just to have a home robot. Mm-hmm. And then, of course, a year or two later, they upgrade their model. They go and trade in their old one for a new one. And the new one has a much richer vocabulary and a sense of humor, and it's cynical, and it can do far more things. Then once you've had several upgrades like this, then millions, billions of people will be asking the same questions. Will these machines become smarter than we are? And then that will set what I call the species dominance debate. Really start raging in the 2020s.
Perhaps, Dr. Degaris, what might happen as we become increasingly